Chapter 12. You want me to do what, Lord? For the Lord your God will bless you in all your harvest and in all the work of your hands, and your joy will be complete. Deuteronomy 16, verse 15. I have been learning the great importance of Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I have been loved by God during this quiet time, and our relationship has grown considerably. I have also noticed that when I find time alone with God, just he and I in complete silence, he often offers me an assignment. Has this ever happened to you? It is sometimes simple, like cooking a meal for a friend or offering a particular service to someone we don't know well. Sometimes it is to offer encouragement to someone, or to just give someone a big hug. I like that one. But sometimes these assignments seem greater. In fact, sometimes they seem undoable. As my relationship with God has grown more intimate, these assignments have come more frequently. But one was particularly alarming. It caused me to question God. Never a good idea, by the way. God, are you sure? I really don't think I am the girl for this particular assignment. Can I recommend someone else for you? Sound familiar? Indeed, I have grown to understand the insecurity of Moses. He argues similarly with God at the burning bush as God instructs Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, O Lord, please send someone else to do it. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses. Exodus 4, verses 10 through 14. As with Moses, God did not allow me to talk my way out of my assignments. I felt his anger begin to burn against me, and I had little choice but to quickly rush to begin my assignment. He has taught me along the way that to question his request or my ability to fulfill that request is to question him. Indeed, I am not able to do many of the tasks God assigns to me, but he is certainly capable of doing them through me. He will give me what I need to accomplish his will. It is in his abilities, not mine, that I need to show faith. I believe that God aids us in our heartfelt efforts to leave a powerful and godly legacy for our children. Of course, God wants to use us to minister to our children, who are truly his. Just as my son Luke always reminds me, Mommy, you are a child too, a child of God. So wise for such a young boy, and with such a tender heart. I can't help but adore my sweet son, and I like to picture God sitting on his throne, smiling down on Luke too. I feel a connection with God in this way, the love of a parent. Though God's is so much more perfect than mine, mine still seems so powerful. Shortly after the cancer returned, and I began to prepare my children and myself for frequent doctor's visits, chemotherapy, and all manner of other unexpected inconveniences, I began looking for children's books to better prepare Ashley and Luke. Rebecca was not yet 2 years old. I looked for books on cancer, books on chemotherapy, and books on death and dying. Most importantly, I wanted these books and the lessons they presented to be from a Christian perspective. I was surprised to find very little on this subject. With the help of a close friend, Diana Meany, who happened to be the children's librarian of our local library, I found a few books on cancer and chemotherapy, but they were all very clinical and matter-of-fact. Though I did read these books with Ashley and Luke, they both seemed bored. They did not provoke the conversations for which I had hoped. Only one book I found was on death and dying, and because it was not from the Christian perspective, I chose not to expose my children to that particular book at all. I knew that at times they would struggle, and I desperately wanted them to turn to God for the strength and peace that Derek and I might be unable to offer. I could not offer this lesson through a secular text. Perhaps it is my newfound homeschool tendencies or habits, but I was unable to let go of the idea that a children's book would offer my children the greatest avenue for exploring their fears and general feelings while opening an opportunity for communication with their dad and me. For several months, I took every opportunity to complain to anyone who would listen about this lack in children's literature. Finally, one Sunday, as I had closed my eyes to pray while communion was being served, I again began my complaints to God about my inability to find anything appropriate to read to my children. His voice was as clear to me as it had ever been, or clearer, as he stated strongly, "Kristen, write it yourself." Wow, this was not good. I was stunned and unable to clear my head. I was anxious for the church service to conclude, and I quickly dragged Derek from the pew to a quiet room nearby. God wants me to write a children's book. Though I do not recall his reply, I do remember the amusement in his eyes, though I am not sure whether he was amused with me or with God. Derek never once questioned my ability to write a children's book, though I knew I was woefully underqualified. I was not a writer, I was not creative, and what would be done about the illustrations? I certainly could not even attempt to draw anything more than a sorry stick figure. I prayed for several weeks, and then, with no excuses left, I told God he would have to give me the abilities and the resources to accomplish this task if it was indeed his will. I worked for several months on the text of the book. One would think that it would not take long to write a 44-page picture book, as there are not too many words per page, after all. However, I was consumed with my desire to confront the issues I most wished to share with my children, and I hoped to maintain biblical truth within my story about a family of trains. Luke, you just couldn't get enough of trains at that time, and the toy maker who created them. As the first draft of my story was concluding, and I knew I would soon have to share it with others, I became increasingly insecure about my efforts. However, God faithfully surrounded me with family and close friends who continued to encourage me, and God was soon to dispel my greatest concern. As I worked on the words of my book, I repeated to myself how useless they would be without illustrations. Derek and I had discussed what we most hoped for the drawings, but we were unsure of how to ask his sister to illustrate it for us. Devon's husband, O.P., once stated the perceptive truth that Devon has more creativity in one pinky finger than the rest of us will ever know. It is very true. She teaches music to an astonishingly blessed group of elementary school children in Georgia, which she does with passion and a most creative style. Besides her extensive musical talent for performing and teaching, she is also a gifted artist. The illustrations she crafted to parallel my text were awe-inspiring, and most certainly inspired by God. They gave me the confidence that I was following God's will, though my insecurity remained. Ironically, my especially gifted, creative, and artistic sister-in-law was also insecure about her part in the project. This I just could not understand. Derek explained to me, in a moment of great insecurity over my efforts on the book, that it was something God had led me to do, and was therefore his project, not mine. He gently suggested that it was unfaithful to question my efforts, as God would give me what I needed to complete the task he had assigned to me. He was right, and I have since worked to muster the confidence David showed as he faced Goliath. I am as capable of writing a book as David was of conquering the giant warrior, and I must repeat to myself, God is with me. He will not fail me, and I will therefore not fail in whatever he has planned for me. I have since worked to remember that the book was inspired by God, and I am therefore writing to please him and complete my calling. After almost 2 years, we completed our project. We had the text, we had the illustrations, and we had titled our work A Train's Rest, A Toymaker's Love. However, we had absolutely no idea what to do next. We failed to do anything at this point except to pray for guidance. In God's grace, this was all that was required. Chapter 13. The Dream Team. The Lord's love never ends, his mercies never stop. They are new every morning. Lord, your loyalty is great. Lamentations 3, verses 22 through 24. Just as Devon and I were completing our book project, I met Dr. Shannon Pepito, a professional and a true friend. Let me start at the beginning of my story with Shannon. Luke slept next to me as Tiffany began my last chemotherapy treatment of the day. Luke and I had just enjoyed a beautiful afternoon in Central Park, and he was exhausted. I knew that shortly after the IV drip began, I would also become irresistibly tired. I was thankful for the peace of knowing that if Luke awoke before me, Tiffany would start a video for him and ensure that he was safe and staying with me in the chemotherapy suite. Just as Tiffany was leaving the room, a young woman I had not met before entered. She had come to inquire about my willingness to participate in a research study being held at Sloan Kettering. These were common, but I had not been asked to participate in one before. I was hesitant, knowing that it would be very difficult for me to come to the city on days other than those when chemotherapy was scheduled. The psychology assistant assured me that any meetings would be held during my time in the chemotherapy suite. She explained that the research was called dignity therapy, and that they were researching the validity of physical, emotional, and spiritual factors in patients dealing with what has been diagnosed as terminal cancer. Did she say spiritual? I figured I had much to say in regard to how God has blessed me through my coexistence with cancer, so I quickly agreed to participate. The following week, I met with the psychologist who would be interviewing me. Her name was Dr. Shannon Pepito, and she was a psychology fellow at Sloan Kettering who was in charge of the Dignity Therapy Research Project. The premise was that I was to share what was most important to me, which she recorded, transcribed, edited, and bound into an attractive package to be preserved for those left behind after I pass away. Regardless of when the fulfillment of my days is realized, what a treasure to have for my children. I was thrilled with what she did for me, and I genuinely enjoyed talking with her. I liked her immensely, and God had yet to show me all the blessings this special doctor would bring. The Faith Legacy document, written when my children were 3, 5, and 7 years old, which Shannon created, is more than 40 pages long. Allow me to share just a few passages of her gift to me and my children. Q. That's wonderful. What are your most important accomplishments, and what do you feel most proud of? A. I think my children are definitely what I'm most proud of. As much as I loved my job, after Derek and I just got married and I started my job, I had been so blessed as a child. I had opportunities that I know a lot of kids didn't have. I really felt God was preparing me for something. And when I started on my work, I was sure that was it. He was preparing me to train guide dogs for these people with vision problems. I was sure that was it, and I loved it, and I thought I was there. And then I had the children, and I thought, I don't know, I think maybe he was preparing me for this. Because it's hard work, and what could be more important than caring for these 3 precious little souls? So it's definitely my children. I think they're great kids, even though they're young, and they have a lot to learn. I think they're great kids. Q. What do you think is so great about them specifically? A. Well, they're each so different. Ashley has a really special spirit. She was the firstborn, and she's a lot like me. She's a perfectionist, which we're working on. She's very driven, and she's very bright. I think that might be why homeschooling is so fun for me, because she catches on really fast, and it's neat to see her catch on to everything. I love to listen to her play the piano, and she loves to read. Whenever we go to the library, which is frequently because she reads through her books so quickly, she has to go immediately to her room, where she asks not to be disturbed for several hours. She won't even come out for lunch. She is completely engrossed in her stories. She likes to accomplish certain things. She's going to work very hard to accomplish something someday. Already she really feels that she wants to do whatever God wants her to do. She wants to do that. She seems to have a heart really in touch with God, communicating with him. I like that. And she's very fun to talk to. She's getting older, so I can talk to her more as a friend sometimes, and it's just nice. Luke is 5. He's very much a boy, being silly, pretending to be a soldier or a knight, and he loves all sports that involve balls. But he's also very sensitive, and I love that about him. He has a heart of gold. He is quite tough in that if he gets hurt, if he falls and scrapes his knee, my mom has construction at her house, and he fell and gashed his leg on this piece of barbed wire. It was a pretty nasty gash in his leg. He just sort of walked in the house and said, "I cut myself." He wasn't crying over it. When I looked at it, I thought, wow, this really hurts, and he wasn't that upset. But if his little sister Rebecca says something to him that's not very nice, he is inconsolable for a very long period of time. He's just very sensitive, but he takes care of his sisters, and it's very sweet. Then there's Rebecca. That child has a strong yet absolutely beautiful personality. It's a very sweet personality, sort of a performer type personality. She has so much spirit. I love that. She likes to cuddle and make us laugh. She is very precocious and very bright. She knows how to push Luke. She adores her brother more than anybody else, yet she knows how to upset her brother, which is usually by saying that he upset her somehow, that he's done something that's not right. Those things upset him deeply, to the core. So she's working on him. She's toughening him up, and he's teaching her how to be sweet. It's amazing to me how different they are. They are very different, but all very fun, and they teach us so many things. Q. Are there specific things that they teach you that just really stand out that you'd want to share? A. Ashley teaches me a lot of spiritual things. She just seems really in tune with God and what he wants for her. The past few weeks have been, if her brother and sister come to her and do something that she doesn't feel is right, they don't do it all the time, but, bugging her or taking her book because she likes to read or something like that, and she will say, "You just did that to God." That's what she likes to tell them. "You just hit God," or "You just stole God's book. Do you think that's a good idea?" And she explains to them in her sermon voice that she's working on that when you do unto others, you're doing unto God. So you just did that to God. It drives her brother nuts, but I kind of let her do it because it entertains me and teaches a little lesson. So she teaches me a lot. And Luke teaches me to be more sensitive. I think all of us are a little tougher than him. His feelings are so easily hurt. He teaches me how to be a little more thoughtful. With kids, you think you can just reprimand them when they do something wrong, but he teaches me when and where. If I need to reprimand him and his friends are there, maybe you just take him from there and do it somewhere else, and that sort of thing. Those are valuable lessons for me, so he teaches me those things. And the little one just keeps us on her toes. She's a pistol. She is so precocious, so different from the other two that are quiet and sometimes serious, and she is so not. Q. Legacy is so important. What about the legacy you'll share with your husband? A. My husband and I talk pretty openly. I think he knows how I feel about everything, and he's very open with me. I just want him to know that I always knew I was very blessed to have him. He's just got such strength, and he's so smart and fun. We have a good time together, and I love being with him. In 11 years of marriage, I just like him more and more all the time. Oh, he's a great husband. But when I was diagnosed with cancer and went through the surgery, I was really floored by how he handled everything, and also how he cared for me. I don't think it's common or average for a man to take care of things on the level that he did. Anything that I struggled with, he just took over. He never complained. He still has reason to complain. He's like that. He's doing his job and my job and helping care for my mom and everything. He does it all on his own with a happy heart. There would be some times when I watched him and I would think, oh, it would be so much easier if this were just over and I'd be gone. So much would be lifted from him if that was the case. But those moments are fleeting because he's so adamant that he'd rather have it this way. Q. Also remember that when you have a need, his ability to fulfill that need gives him value. He needs to feel that there is a reason for him to be there. So with those fleeting thoughts, it would take the value of him being as good a husband away, you know? A. That's true. And he has been. He anticipates those needs before I even have to voice them, so I don't feel like I'm constantly nagging him. We've been on the chemo for a year and a half now. For most of our friends, it's kind of old news. I'm on the treatment, keeping everything stable, and everything is good. They kind of move on, which is good. I mean, I want that. But at the same time, maybe I have a hard week from the chemotherapy, and I don't really feel like I can talk to people because they've already moved on. But Derek always seems to know. He can always tell when I'm still not feeling quite right. He says he can see it in my eyes. He's so terrific. I remember one Sunday in church feeling really bad. We were standing talking to a group of friends. I wasn't complaining or anything, but I was just still feeling off, and I was frustrated that it was already Sunday from treatment on Wednesday, and I was still feeling bad. I remember thinking I was going to burst into tears standing there with our friends. They didn't have any idea what was going on in my head. But I looked up at Derek across the circle, and the expression on his face that he gave me was that he knew I wasn't feeling great. You could tell he felt bad about that. It wasn't like, after living with that for a year and a half, I think a lot of people would be saying, okay, suck it up because it's been so long. But it was like, I know you don't feel good, and I want you to feel good, and I sympathize with you, but I'm not going to talk about it in front of all these people because I know you don't want that. That he knew was enough to totally calm me. Totally. So I told you I wouldn't know what I would do without my faith right now. It's also true that I really don't know what I would do if God hadn't given me Derek to get through these various situations. I mean, he drives to the city every week to pick me up. Whatever he thinks I need, he does. He's amazing. He's really great. Is this not a wonderful gift? I liked Shannon immensely, and God had yet to even show me all the blessings this special doctor would bring. Once Shannon completed my faith legacy, I thought my time with her was complete, but it was far from over. She came to me shortly after to explain that she had talked with a little-known group within MSKCC, called the Dream Team, who fulfilled the desires of patients. For me, Shannon had requested that the children's book crafted by Devon and me, but inspired by God, be printed and distributed by MSKCC. Wow. Devon and I were almost finished with our book project, but we had been unsure of how to proceed. It was clear to me that God's hand was at work. I was thrilled. I was further excited when I was told that the books would be distributed through a nonprofit organization called Light One Little Candle, created by a young mother who died of breast cancer when her daughter was just 4 years old. This special mom believed that in the midst of medical turmoil, reading to one's child created priceless time together. The organization gives books to children with a terminally ill parent. What a perfect way to distribute to those in greatest need of what I believe God wanted me to share with my own children. I could not have dreamed of a more perfect situation. I was awed by God's ability to make A Train's Rust, A Toymaker's Love available to many families who might benefit from it most. I found that at that point I was more than satisfied. I had the book for my children, and I had even been granted the opportunity to share it. I was ready to put the book aside and move on. But I began to take note of a burden on my heart for all those children who lived with a terminally ill parent or who had lost a parent to terminal illness. The burden seemed to become heavier every day. How could I reach out to these children? How could I reach out to other mothers and fathers who feared abandoning their children through an early death? Derek was the first to mention the idea of organizing a nonprofit corporation. As we discussed the possibilities, I became increasingly excited. I had felt uneasy about making a financial profit from the book God had authored through me. It was, in fact, God's book. though certainly strongly affected by my imperfect human nature. God provided all the inspiration and everything good that came of the story. Despite the imperfect vessel God used, I felt the book was good enough to touch children who were hurting and who lacked the understanding of death God has given us in order to give us comfort and peace. I continue to struggle with my lack of faith in this area. If God chose me to write this book and offered me opportunities to distribute it to his suffering children, I must remain confident that he will take my lacking skills as a writer and use it for good. Hence, the book you are reading now, which was always intended only to be read by my children and my husband. Something to leave behind to remind them that despite the suffering, God poured out blessing after blessing during our time in the fire. Derek and I have had grand dreams about what could be done through a nonprofit ministry, though we certainly could never do what needs to be done on our own. We envision the book being sold and any profits being used for academic scholarships or the meeting of other financial needs of children like ours. We envision fellowship and counseling for these children through community events where these children and their families could encourage and support one another. We envision workshops and presentations given to share our story and the lessons with which God has gifted us. We are most certainly working outside of our comfort zone, which allows us to more frequently see God's hand in our life. Each and every time we have stopped and said, God, we can't do this, he has brought someone into our life to pull us through. I truly believe the birth of Inheritance of Hope is God's idea, and I cannot wait to see how he works through it.